Welcome to this episode of Retalon's Retail Expert Series. Today's topic is on luxury fashion and advanced analytics in retail. We are very fortunate to have some great and unique experts for you today answering 5 questions. Graziano de Boni has built a highly impressive career track record in the luxury fashion industry for over 3 decades. His unique experience includes working in the role of Executive Vice President at Hugo Boss and President and CEO at Marzotto, Valentino, Prada, Coach, Giorgio Armani, and Philip Plain. Today, he is the founder and CEO of De Boni Consulting, offering his unique expertise to the largest brands and retailers in the world. Joining Graziano is Mark Krupnik, CEO of Retalon, an award-winning provider of advanced analytics and AI for retail. Mark has a PhD in applied mathematics. He had authored new programs in retail technologies and retail information systems for the School of Retail Management at Ryerson University. He is a contributor for Forbes Technology Council, and as CEO at Retalon, has worked with some of the largest retailers in North America on advanced retail analytics and AI. So this should be a very insightful discussion. We have 5 quick questions for our experts today. Let's get right into it. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Graziano, how are you doing this morning?
Great, thank you. Nice to be with you guys.
Great. And Mark, how are you?
I'm great too. Thank you very much. I just wanted to say that as I'm sitting across Graziano, who is a well-respected expert in luxury brands, and we will be discuss challenges in this industry, I would prefer to listen rather than talk. But since this format of interview assumed that I should say something, then I will probably focus on just one aspect, which is a powerful weapon that we provide to the industry of luxury brands. And I'm talking about modern analytics.
Thank you. So let's get into the first question. In the past, luxury brands would burn excess inventory, but this is increasingly being frowned upon and even regulated by the government in some cases. Industry leader Louis Vuitton does not wholesale merchandise, and Prada announced an end to its in-store markdowns last year. Prada CEO Patrizio Bertelli was quoted stating that it is improved consistency in pricing that will reinforce customer relationships and enhance product value. So how critical is it for luxury brands to avoid markdowns, and how can that be prevented? Let's start with you, Graziano.
Yeah, I mean, for luxury brands, by definitions, markdown is definitely an unwelcome business practice. Always has been and always will be, to the point that some of the brands you even mentioned, don't actually do any of them. The practice of destroying unsold inventory, fortunately, is no longer being a practice because we are all much more conscious of building a sustainable business and respecting everything, not just the environment, but the people and so forth. In terms of what can you do as a business, as a brand, to mitigate or even eliminate markdowns, it really depends a lot on the brand that you are and the business that you have built in the eyes of the consumers. In addition to that, it depends on what kind of product and product mix you have that you offer. Some luxury brands are fundamentally geared towards accessories and footwear, which are by nature business that are in grand parts less seasonal. Some of the brands maybe depends more on apparel, on ready to wear, which is, again, by definition, more seasonal. So the more that you're able to build a non-seasonal dependent business, the better you'll be able to manage the markdowns. But in case you cannot necessarily change that completely, the importance of leveraging today's availability of data to make sure that you have the right product at the right time in front of a customer when she needs it is critical and is the solution to make sure that you sell that product at full price and not let it sit in a shelf or in a warehouse waiting for somebody for the price to drop.
Well, I'm obviously of the same opinion. By the definition of the brand, if you mark it down, it's very difficult to return to original price or have the same perception in people's minds. So Graziano, I second you on that. But more specifically about what measures can be taken, I'm thinking about three possible things. So number one is when people build a new product or buy a product, like I'm talking about buyers. Buyers usually love every product they bring, otherwise they would not do it. But they should still keep in mind that there is a Pareto rule, that some 20% of products will bring 80% of sales, and certain analytics can help making a decision or constraints of not buying the same or not building the same quantity of every product. The second thing is, as soon as you start selling the product, you have to recognize early signals, which will indicate where to move the product and who needs it, who buys it more. And again, reacting on these early brands will help in this venture. And the final point, the last but not the least, and it's a very important point, as simple as it seems, it should be just manufactured right sizes. That's a very old problem, but never mind if it's a beautiful jacket, but it's a wrong size, a consumer can't buy it. And just buying or building the same sizes as we have always done, or last season or last year, if in the end of the season we had abundance of certain sizes or we lost sales on some sizes, we basically will repeat the same problem next year. So if you deploy proper analytics, it will help to build the right sizes. That's crucial, because that's one of the major factors, as we found out in our analytics, that impact people to having extra merchandise.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. I mean, it's a very complex, of course, thing on one side. On the other side, today's days, there is such an availability of data. And,
yes.
And if you as a company are able to collect that data and then use the right tool to extract from that data lake the analytics that you're talking about, you can come up with the predictives that allows you to build the assortments.
Absolutely.
Not just on the size and colors and so forth, but also in terms of timing of when the product needs to be deployed either online or physically in the stores, that guarantees a higher rate of selling because the demand will be there at that point. Yeah. So it's all about the data at the end.
Yes, Graziano. The data, and in particular in luxury brands, it's about attributes. This is something which is, you can't just say jacket. That's really how it's tailored, how the embroidery, the color, the sleeve, the color, the pattern. These attributes are very important. That's how consumers make a decision about purchasing, right?
Yeah, no, it is, and fundamentally, humans buy apparel, accessories, product in general,
yes,
even outside fashion, for maybe I'm limiting, but fundamentally for three reasons. One is because specific to apparel, because of weather. So weather-related apparel and shoes and whatnot, right? I mean, the weather changes, it's winter, you need winter shoes. You can just not walk around with flip-flops unless you live in the equator and you have same temperature all year round. The second reason is replacement. So something that you need that just wore out or broke and you need to replace it. And then the third reason is basically occasion driven. It can be a birthday, can be a wedding, can be a gala, a charity, can be just a feel-good buy because you got a bonus or you got a raise and you want to go out and treat yourself. And so some of those moments are well known, and we as businesses, we can actually account for them in the planning process using, again, the right data. And today's data is not just about, I think that we need to think also outside just the company data, because in today's days, we live in the world of data. Everything, as we know, is data. Everything is a bit. Everything is 0 and 1, if you put it down that way. And so the ability to have access, now that we do have access to that data, to elaborate, to incorporate it and elaborate it and match it with your own company business data to exactly tackle issues like, there is a special occasion coming up, there is a special holiday coming up, and let's not just load it up, or let's just target, even to the extent of micro-targeting, geographically micro-targeting specific communities that you want to go after, that you want to develop business, or that you want to develop product for, that can be interesting. There's so much that can be done if you have the right tools in place.
Thanks, Graziano and Mark. That was an interesting discussion. Here's today's second question. Mark Metrick, president and CEO of Saks Fifth Avenue, recently wrote an article in Fast Company. Metrick described the pernicious cycle of bringing inventory 4 months before the season and marking down existing merchandise to make room for new product. He described that retailers not only commit to and freeze cash flow too early, but also squeeze their margins and start offering products before there's any real consumer demand for it. Since today's retailers are operating in a more than ever 24/7 on-demand world, how can fashion retailers get better at bringing inventory when it is actually in demand and with customers willing to pay full price? Let's start with Graziano again.
Sure. So basically, what we were just saying, the last point, ties in with exactly with this question, right? How do you bring in the right products in the right geographical area at the right time? History, of course, helps, and now history of data can be elaborated to make it such that you can kind of predict. But then you need also to incorporate what else is happening, particularly in the world of fashion, where trends are important, because trends are something that are new and there's not necessarily much data about, but there is data. The fact is that the data about trends that you need to combine with your historical business company data is first found outside your company, is first found outside in the society or community at large. Is it a fashion show? Is it social media postings and Instagram reviews of fashion shows or celebrities wearing something? So the ability of combining that data and being able to elaborate it together with your company data allows you to really bring in the merchandise that you think the customer wants. Let's keep in mind that even if there are trends, not everybody follows the exact same trends. And so you have to have some sort of a system that can elaborate the data and allows you to allocate your product, buy and allocate your product according to what your customers or clusters of customers will want and where they will want. And by doing so, absolutely, Mark Metrick is fantastic. I love what he's doing, and is right on this subject of eliminating a very vicious cycle that the industry has lived through the past 20 or probably 30 years or even more, of bringing in product way too early when people need it. Having swimsuits in January in Florida makes sense. Having swimsuits in Maine in January does not make sense. Now, you can tell it doesn't need a genius, or you don't need a predictive analytics system to figure that out. Yet, the constraints of many brands and many businesses are such that they do need a system to help them navigate and open their eyes what those opportunities are. Yes.
Well, Graziano hit the nail on the head. So all I can do is just to disclose one secret, how it's actually done, because it's exactly what needs to be done. It should be a combination of information that the company has plus the information coming from social media or external sources, as Graziano said. And everybody's asking usually the same question. Every product is different. The products I had last season are not the same as people talk about on social media. How you can combine this information? And the proper way of doing that lies in the technologies that are provided today by different machine learning tools. And that's basically building families of products similar by attributes. So it may be products that people will choose within. So several similar products in the similar store clusters or geodemographic zones. So when the system formed these creatures like similar locations and similar products, then suddenly what Graziano has described can be executed because you observe the microtrends of this group of products and this group of locations. And now you can combine the information you have in the system with information you're getting from external sources and make conclusions. So this is the way to go. And fortunately, as Graziano again said, we do have tools today to do it.
Great, thank you. Let's go to our third question. Given the turbulence the retail industry has experienced recently with the global pandemic, should brands focus on developing cross-seasonal products to protect themselves from these unprecedented shifts in demand, and how can they do this?
Yes and no, and more no than yes, to tell you the truth. Because I do believe that any brand should always, independently from the business cycle, be focusing in developing the product that they're best known for. Because that's what the consumer knows. The consumer knows what your brand stands for. And usually the consumer has in her mind just one or two things. They know that thing from Chanel. They know that bag from Hermes. They know that shoe from Ferragamo, correct? So trying sometimes to stray away from your core expertise and core values is not necessarily a good strategy just because of the moment or the period of time. Having said that, there is nothing wrong with capturing temporary opportunities that can be presented in the marketplace, and that goes along with shifting trends that happen periodically every 3, 5, 10, 20 years, wearing skinny suits and then wearing baggy suits and wearing skinny jeans and then baggy jeans, right? So there are trends there. The trend in general that COVID unfortunately has accelerated is definitely a trend towards more comfort for the time being, which is not a new trend. This trend has been going around for, God knows, decades, 100 years probably. Silicon Valley tech world has helped also accelerate that trend in that respect. But nevertheless, eventually we will conquer COVID. We'll get out of this and we'll go back to whatever the new norm life will be. But there will be events, there will be galas, there will be occasions to dress up again, and that will be back, together with also the fact that I think after wearing for 6 months or a year sweatpants and t-shirts and hoodies and slippers or sneakers, probably people are gonna wanna dress up and they're gonna be excited about it. So I wouldn't discount the opportunity that will present into 2021's of having some more wow product and not just boring, basic, seasonless product. Keeping also in mind that most probably, I think that this could be an interesting thought. Most probably a lot of consumers have used some of the time that they've had staying at home to clean up their closet. I think a lot of people have done. I don't say everybody, but a lot of people have just cleaned up their closets, right? and lighten up. So they've kept the things that they love. They got rid of stuff that they haven't liked or used in years or longer. And they have voids in their closet. They have opportunities in their closets. And chances are, again, that those voids, those opportunities are not basic products, are more occasions or other reasons related products that will probably spur demand into next year for something a little more exciting than just another white t-shirts.
Well, I agree that it's actually a very interesting observation, because we observe even large high-tech companies, when they try to go to each other territory, doesn't always successful venture, because they have their own expertise, the things they're known for, and that's what people expect from them. So that's a very good observation. Though I have a question for you. Like if you only sell, let's say, winter merchandise, and that means that you continue paying all year round your lease, your salaries for employees, your other logistic, but you only actively sell merchandise on winter, or even if you sell 2 seasons like winter and summer, you still don't have a breach in the spring and the fall of products that can be year-round product. So maybe it should be that luxury brands, under like within their expertise, within what they're known for, try to expand the assortment of the products that can be year-round products, so they can probably test it during spring, and it's not during like winter, if it's not a weather-specific product. Then if it works well, they can rebuy it and continue selling it all year round, and slowly, one step at a time, build a more their own brand and their own kind of way, products that will be sold during all 4 seasons. What do you think about it?
No, yes, I think you're right, Mark. But that has been happening all along. Every brand has always been trying to develop more of an evergreen product forever, honestly. And we were talking at the beginning about this subject.
Yeah, bags and shoes and stuff.
Bags and shoes, or even in ready to wear. I mean, if a Chanel jacket is a Chanel jacket, you never find it on discounts, and it doesn't matter if it is one season or another. Many times you don't even know which season it is. It's just
as a matter of fact, when you talk about occasion products like a dress for an event, then it can be like it doesn't depend on a season, because the event may happen at any time, right?
Correct. So I think that within the core DNA of a brand, you absolutely want to build a more and more of a seasonless, as you call it, evergreen product. But that's independent from COVID-19 and the time that we live in. You want to do it because exactly that's how you do build a long-term brand and a long-term profitable business under it. But my recommendation will be to kind of stick to it and not try to make boring product out of items or classifications that people don't really think much of when it comes to your brands.
Right. So doing it without damaging your own brand, your foundation, like doing it in a wise way.
Absolutely, and and then sometimes you as a brand, if you're not strong in a category that brings that kind of a business, do you want to work to build that kind of a business? But you want to build it over time, and it does take time. It doesn't happen just over 6 months that you become known also as a handbag brand or a shoe brand or a jewelry brand or a watch brand. It takes a long time, and we have great experiences of some brands that I've done. I mean, I remember the day when Vuitton introduced watches, and they did that by introducing one watch. When they went into the watch business with the Louis Vuitton brand, it was one watch.
Yeah.
Now it's a full collections, but it's many, many years later. And it does take time. It can, but of course, it can be done if you have the luxury of time and resources behind that. So.
Thank you for that, gentlemen. And so this brings us to the second last question for today. Recently, there's been a shift in demand for luxury products around the world, with an increase in Asia occurring simultaneously with a decline in Europe and North America. So, how can retailers create a more dynamic and personalized assortment for different customers in perhaps different geographical zones?
When you start with from the beginning with the really the creation of the product, and is followed by the marketing of the brand and the product that needs to be inclusive and made available for multiple consumers and multiple markets, multiple regions of the world. Unless you want to develop product just specifically for one community or one area of the world. So it starts from the beginning, and having access to the data of their customers is critical to help develop that kind of product. But I will also add that you need also the agility on your product development and on your supply chain to be able to really capture the needs and then translate it into product that becomes available for that market. In general, there is always been different needs, or supposed to be different needs and different tastes. For sure, different sizing in different regions of the world, but also in different regions of the same countries. Like America, it's a big country. We're not all the same size, and we don't have all the same taste and needs if you live in the south versus the north, the west versus the east, and so forth. And so the ability to be able to develop the product for your target customer, which is what you want to do. And that, again, that target customer can be the whole world, or can be a very specific sub community. It's up to the company, it's up to the brands, but it can be done. And in today's days, can be done even more so. Keeping in mind that you want to pay attention in today's days to very important cultural and diversity elements that needs to be absolutely kept into account in those kind of activities.
Yeah, and that's a very, in my opinion, also it's a very right direction. And the question is, I was thinking how we can execute it, and this analogy came to my mind. Like, let's imagine that we had the ability to assign a personal shopper to every consumer, and this personal shopper would understand the desire of this consumer, the microtrend, what this consumer is willing to go, or how these habits are changing, right? And then this information will flow together into a big database. But if you think about it, that's what's happening today, because these new technologies that provide the ability to capture microtrends, then they group them together, find similar patterns, and they form certain trends for different geodemographic zones, for different types of products. And it's basically, for retailers, it's now operating as one large business because you operate the system, but in reality, the system operates those micro trends. It literally treats every group of people who are having similar trends or similar geography or demographics and group them together. And that allows not to guess, but actually to build all those trends and act upon them, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, in addition, there is also the fact that individualism as a philosophical idea, and we go back to our old Greek philosophers there, is something that has been growing over the centuries, over the millennials, to today, where really you can get product just made for yourself more
Exactly.
and more, right?
Well,
So,
I believe the big luxury brands have always done that, right? Somebody told me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that certain brands are not allowed to bring the same pair of shoes to two different pairs in the same city. So because they have to be unique. And that, if that's correct, that's what like is happening today. People can individualize or personalize their assortment. Is it correct?
uh, eh, to a small extent, Mark. I mean, the two pair of shoes in the same cities. It depends what we are talking about. If we're talking about haute couture products, yes, that's a real ultimate made for you, one of a kind product, and that's the ultimate. If you want, you know, in medicine they call it precision medicine, right? Uh,
Right.
and in our world we'll call it precision fashion. So just made for you products, and it's becoming now at the mass level to an extent, because you can customize, not necessarily make from scratch, but you can customize your own Nike sneakers, and that's
Right.
at mass level. It's no longer just one of a kind luxury customers that have access to that, and so is done by many others. Brands, and it's permeating also different aspects of the luxury business. But the importance of having that capability is becoming more and more instrumental in helping segments of the business. On the other, and that goes along also with the overall trends of consumer driven manufacturing. On the other side, I want to say that we should never discount the importance and the fascinations and the excitement that something newly designed creates in the people's minds and dreams. And the ability of a fashion brand, luxury brands, but not only luxury brands, to come up with that product that get the consumer excited, that get the consumer, really blown away and surprised.
And recognize the brand to be
And
the icon of the brand, right?
yeah, it can be a leader in the industry and so forth. But that element remains and will, in my opinion, always remain very critical in building a business, because we are in the business of, on one side, yes, fulfilling the needs. And if her need is, for a company to make the shoes for her that she wants, great. But on the other side, there is a much bigger, in my opinion, need for the industry to really surprise, excite, and give that dream that comes inheritance and the adrenaline that you get by finding the product that you thought you were looking, or you didn't even think you were looking for, and or walking through the aisles of the stores, or while you are browsing your Pinterest, and you find, oh my gosh, look at that chair, that's amazing. So, let me see who designed it, and so forth. That needs to remain intrinsic into the industries, and maybe there is more data and more tools to manage one side, but eventually, with a lot of new tools that are coming into the tech world, from sentiment analysis and things like that, emotional analysis tools, eventually we'll be able to have more help in detecting what will be a product that will wow a customers, rather than just being a product that fulfill a need.
Well, and Graziano, let's not discount the fact that something that's built by professional star designers, it's not something that every human can designed for themselves. They might want to do it and some will like it, but for most of people, their skills, I mean, they're not professional designers at the level of luxury brands today. So when these designers offer something, and as you said, people go and find these germs, I mean, that's because it was designed at certain level of, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. The excitement and the kind of fulfillment, happiness that you get out of discovering something beautiful, new, different, unique, unexpected is unique, and is so much part of what drive part of the consumptions in the world. Because again, the consumer buy because they need, also buy because they just get blown away by something beautiful or unique that they wouldn't ever thought about.
Thank you for that discussion. And so here's today's final question. Nordstrom CEO Eric Nordstrom was quoted at a recent Shop Talk interview saying, "It is really impossible to separate out the digital journey from the physical journey. We know that over half of our store visits started with the customer going online. We also know that just over half the store customers pull out their phone at some point in the shopping journey for help. We know that about 35% of our online purchases started with a store visit. So the question is, as the line between physical stores and e-commerce continues to blur in the digital age, how can retailers align and unify strategy, management, analytics, and operations across all sales channels in order to be more successful?" Mark, let's hear from you first.
Sure. I mean, today's reality is exactly as Eric Nordstrom has described it. So we have no choice as to cope with this reality because the boundaries are disappearing between brick and mortar and e-commerce stores. And my observation is that for as long as people differentiate the channels and they say, oh, e-commerce will do that way and brick and mortar this way, this kind of, they discriminate to some extent some channel consciously, subconsciously. That's where the problem appears. The reality is that all the channels, whether it's e-commerce, a drop ship, or brick and mortar stores, kiosks, or even warehouses, DCs, or any place that potentially can sell merchandise, should be treated as one big ecosystem. And one pool of inventory, you own this inventory, you have to make one decision about pricing, one decision about allocation, one decision about how you offer it to consumers. And there are different terms. People used to call it omni-channel, some people call it unified commerce. It doesn't matter what you call it, as long as we agree that it should be treated the same way analytically. Like when you build your approach, when you develop your approach to inventory, to pricing, it should be just one pool of data, and you treat all these locations together. There are retailers who just declare it just because their executive management told them we need to do omni-channel. Say, okay, so now all our prices are in the same table or like equal. That's not the same. The declaration of omni-channel, you have to be honest to yourself first and say, do we truly optimize all our processes of purchasing, allocation, pricing, planning for the entire business, accounting for attributes of different channels, or we still treat them using different approaches, different systems, and pretend it to be unified commerce? So that's my point of view, how it works these days.
I agree 100% with what you just said, Mark. And I think that businesses need to start thinking beyond omni-channel because we have been talking about omni-channel for 15, 20 years, I think, or so. And now it shouldn't be, as you said, about the channel and combining the channel. It should be about the data. And in fact, I call it omni-data, not omni-channel. I think that a business should look at in a holistic way on how it gathers, collects, stores, use, elaborates the data that it has from whatever points they come in a unison way, not on a channel way, because that's how you're going to have a real full picture of what's happening in the marketplace, in the life of the consumer. In order to do that, you also need to have a good strategy, a good infrastructure, technical infrastructure strategy for your business, because the technology needs to be there to allow you to have that one data lake, not multiple data lake, where all the data goes in, where you can take them out and elaborate it in whatever different ways you want to get your predictives, to get your prescriptives, to make better decisions on your business. And let's not keep in mind, let's not forget, that let's keep in mind that many times we talk about in the industries, we have been talking a lot about the customer journey and the importance of all of that, and now the customer journey should also incorporate what happens outside the stores, not just inside the stores. Absolutely, and not just what happens online when she's browsing your e-commerce websites, but everything else that you can have access to. We need to start to think also how to incorporate the product journey, which is equally important, because a lot of your business, and particularly your P&L and balance sheet, depends a lot on that product journey as well, starting with your working capital and knowing how much of your product inventory is tied up and for how long it's tied up and where it is, and all of that. So the ability, as you said, Mark, and as of course Eric Nordstrom said, to really start thinking beyond just the channels, beyond just e-commerce and brick and mortar and so forth, is absolutely it's a must. It's not even an option, in my opinion, anymore. And you want to do that as soon as possible.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today.
Great. It was great being with you guys. Thank you for your time as well. Great conversation as always, Mark. Looking forward to continuing it.
Thank you, Graziano. I hope that in a short time we'll be able to meet in person finally. And I will be in New York again, hopefully.
I hope so. Or I'll come up to Toronto.
Okay.
Right. Be well, guys.
That's all for today's 5 quick questions. If you have any questions regarding anything you heard today, here's how you can get in touch with our retail experts. Thank you for your time today, and we hope you join us for the next episode of Retail Expert Series. Bye for now.